We understand on the cross, Jesus was separated from God. How is this possible if he is himself God? How can one God be divided?
I don't remember anything in the Bible about Jesus being separated from God. When Jesus cries out, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, that is from Psalm 2. And, 22. And when you read the 22nd Psalm, what do you discover there? You discover it is a deeply messianic psalm. And how does it end? It ends with the vindication of the suffering servant. And so, unlike many strong sermons I've heard, the fact of the matter is that on the cross, when Jesus does that, everybody knows the Psalter was the hymn book of the Jewish people. And you didn't have to sing the whole psalm to remind people of what it was about. If I said, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, I don't have to finish it for everybody in this audience because they already know what the rest of it is. In the same way, when Jesus says this, the very next words from his lips are, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. So the Father is still there. That's in the second person. This idea that when Jesus is offering the greatest obedience to the Father, when he's doing exactly what the Father has sent him to do, he's drinking the cup, that somehow there is a fundamental disturbance of the Godhead and a separation of the Father and the Son, I have absolutely no reason to believe that. If there was something like that, the book of Hebrews would have picked up on it. It's not there. I think it's just a fundamental misreading of the quotation.
So you don't
from Psalm
understand
22.
the sacrifice to be, that Yeshua, when he bore the sins of the world, that he experienced this separation from the Father.
He experiences the wrath of God. That's a vast difference from an actual, the question is asking, in essence, was there a fundamental separation of two divine persons from one another? And that would create ditheism. That would create a separation of Godhead. It would just be absolutely impossible. I think that's a misreading of Psalm 22.
Yeah, and the Psalm 22 point is quite clear. The forsakenness is that I haven't been delivered from this deathly situation, but then he is delivered to the praise of the entire earth. So by quoting that, he's drawing attention to Psalm 22. If there was any type of a spiritual separation that you just wanted to talk about symbolically because of him taking the sins of the world on his shoulders and feeling the weight of that, that's not an issue. But a separation between Father and Son in terms of a reality of separation is another story.
Now that's your question, so do you want to comment on that? Do you believe there was a separation on the cross?
I can agree with what they said, that there was, on the forsaken thing. I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a major problem with the idea of Yeshua being deity and being killed. Now, I want to separate between being dead, eternally dead, like the soul being dead, and being killed, because I don't believe God can be killed. I don't believe that God can be limited. You asked me a moment ago about can he be limited in any way. I don't believe God can be limited in his knowledge, in his understanding, in all things. I do think he can be limited by his own word. In other words, it says God cannot be a man, and our God is not a man.
Yeah, it's a different statement.
Yeah, it is a different statement, but it definitely says God is not a man. We have.
Do you think we believe that he is in his nature?
I think that you believe that when Yeshua came, that he was God.
Yes, but you see the difference between saying that the
as a
essential
man
nature
and you see
of
him as
God.
He pitched his tent among us. Numbers 23:19.
you
God is
see-
not a man that he
I
should lie.
have no problem with him pitching his tent among us, but I don't see that as a reference to him being deity.
But if he pitched his tent, who lived in the tent?
His agent.
His agent lived in the tent.
That's right. He
No,
represented
it says that
him.
he
He represented
the fullness
him.
of God dwelt in him in bodily form. And let's also remember that the
Who
apostles
redeemed
and
the
all these
people out
others
of Egypt?
The apostles and all these others were called agents, but nobody worshipped them, and the worship due to Jesus couldn't go to them.
Who redeemed the people out of Egypt?
God,
That's right. Okay. Who was his agent?
Moses.
Okay, and that's the first redemption. You
But-
have the
but they
first
did not
redemption. You have
worship
the second-
Moses. They-
Absolutely, they don't worship him.
But they worshiped the Son. And God did not pitch his tent in Moses. He pitched his tent in a tabernacle, and his glory dwelt there. So let's just look at the analogy. Think for a second. God pitched his tent. Exodus 25. Make for me a holy place, and I will dwell in their midst. God dwells in the tabernacle. Who dwelt in the physical tabernacle of the body of Jesus? God.
Okay, final
God
response to that, and
incarnate.
then we're moving
That's the
on.
only possible way to read it.
I'm going to go to the worship, okay? You say, well, they worshipped him. You're,
Revelation 5.
4,
5.
Revelation 5. And I'm sure you could go to Daniel in chapter 7, where the Son of Man came and
Where
dominion,
Latreuo was
praise,
used,
and
yes.
honor, and all of this. But I see this exactly as what we saw back in Chronicles. And I see it as a homage to, which is exactly the same word, a homage that is given to the king. And the king sits on the throne of God. And that's, we have a precedent that's in the Tanakh. We see the same thing followed out. And now we want to change what it means.
No,
we want to
just-
change the direction.
Just to get back-
I'm going to jump in with another question.